Good evening, you're now with me, Lorenzo Isaac, for TVS Nightline. We begin with this story. The conflict in the Middle East continues to escalate with fresh strikes, retaliatory attacks, and mixed signals over possible negotiations. As fighting intensifies, the impact is spreading beyond the region, shaking energy supplies, economies, and global markets. These are the latest developments.
Iranian media reports Israeli-U.S. strikes on 2 gas facilities and a pipeline just hours after U.S. President Donald Trump backs away from threats to target Iran's power infrastructure. A local news agency says sites in Isfahan are partially damaged, while a projectile also strikes near the Khorramshahr gas pipeline, though authorities say supply remains unaffected. Meanwhile, Trump says talks with Tehran are going very well and pauses planned attacks despite earlier ultimatum. Claims Iran denies, insisting no negotiations are underway. As Washington signals a possible diplomatic opening, Israel strikes a more cautious but firm tone. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he has spoken with Donald Trump, adding the U.S. president believes military gains in Iran can be turned into a negotiated agreement that protects Israel's interests. Netanyahu says there is a window to leverage recent military achievements by Israeli and U.S. forces into a deal that secures key objectives. This comes after Trump shelves plan to strike Iran's power plants, signaling a shift toward diplomacy following positive contacts with Iranian officials.
מוקדם יותר היום שוחחתי עם ידידנו הנשיא טראמפ. הנשיא טראמפ מאמין שיש סיכוי למנף את ההישגים הכבירים של צה"ל וצבא ארצות הברית כדי לממש את יעדי המלחמה בהסכם, הסכם שישמור על האינטרסים החיוניים שלנו. במקביל, אנחנו ממשיכים לתקוף גם באיראן וגם בלבנון.
But even as diplomatic signals emerge, the conflict continues to escalate on the ground. Iran fires a fresh wave of missiles at Israel, hitting Tel Aviv and causing damage and injuries as uncertainty continues over possible talks to end the 3-week Middle East war. Images show rubble-strewn streets and a badly damaged building with at least 4 people lightly injured across multiple locations. The city's mayor says a direct strike hits an upscale neighborhood, while police believe a cluster munition missile with multiple warheads may have been used. The conflict spreads beyond Iran and Israel as Iraq's autonomous Kurdistan region accuses Iran of launching an attack on its Peshmerga forces. The region's armed forces say 6 Iranian ballistic missiles strike in 2 attacks, killing 6 people and wounding 30 others. It marks the first deadly attack on Kurdish regional forces since the war begins on February 28 with Israeli-U.S. strikes on Iran. The war's economic impact deepens as soaring black market cooking gas prices in India's capital push poorer families back to using wood and coal. The shift raises health risks and worsens air quality in one of the world's most polluted megacities. India, the world's second-largest buyer of liquefied petroleum gas, relies heavily on supplies from the Middle East, now strained by the ongoing conflict. Prime Minister Narendra Modi urges states to curb black marketing and avoid panic, stressing that India's overall energy supplies remain stable. Meanwhile, financial markets react quickly. South Korea's benchmark Kospi index opens higher on Tuesday after Trump held very good talks with an unidentified Iranian official. This price announcement, denied by Tehran, comes ahead of a deadline set by Trump for Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz or face U.S. attacks on its power plants. Asian stocks rise more broadly after Trump delays strikes on Iranian energy sites, boosting hopes of possible de-escalation. Markets in Tokyo, Seoul, and Hong Kong all post gains, while early rebounds are seen in Europe and on Wall Street. However, oil prices edge higher again, with Brent crude climbing back above $100 a barrel as uncertainty persists and Iran denies any ongoing peace talks. U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright says oil market disruptions are temporary, speaking at a conference in Houston. But industry leaders warn the full impact may not yet be reflected in prices. Chevron CEO Mike Wirth says markets have yet to fully factor in the fallout from the Strait of Hormuz blockade, noting Asia faces significant supply concerns. Total Energy's Chief Patrick Pouyanné adds that liquefied natural gas prices could become very high by summer if the key shipping route is not reopened. The ripple effects reach Europe as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky orders his government to ensure stable diesel supplies. Ukraine, heavily reliant on fuel imports after Russia damages its refining capacity, sees diesel prices surge nearly 25% since the war begins.
ГУР, доповідь по ситуації навколо Ірану. Є більше підтверджень, що росіяни продовжують надавати іранському режиму допомогу з розвідувальними даними. Це, очевидно, деструктивна діяльність і треба її припинити, оскільки це працює тільки на ще більшу дестабілізацію. Всі нормальні держави зацікавлені в тому, щоб гарантувати безпеку і не допустити більших проблем. Вже ринки в негативі. Це значно ускладнює паливну ситуацію в багатьох країнах. Тому росіяни своєю допомогою іранському режиму зберегтись та бити влучніше фактично додають час війні.
Malaysia chose its full diplomatic weight behind Indonesia as both nations work to de-escalate tensions in the Middle East. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim confirms that Kuala Lumpur strengthens Jakarta's mediation efforts involving Israel, the United States and Iran. He emphasizes the urgency of protecting civilian lives and opening meaningful dialogue for lasting peace.
Anwar says he supports President Prabowo's direct engagement with both Washington and the Islamic Republic of Iran to secure an immediate ceasefire. The two leaders exchanged views during a telephone call on Monday, discussing the volatile Iran-Israel conflict and regional stability. Anwar is set to visit Jakarta shortly, a move aimed at bolstering bilateral ties and coordinating a joint response to the escalating global crisis.
Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim reiterates Malaysia's firm stance against military operations targeting Iran. He says Malaysia rejects any unilateral actions that breach international law, calling for an immediate ceasefire and a return to diplomatic negotiations. Anwar stresses that protecting civilian lives remains the top priority as the regional crisis escalates.
The statement follows a high-level telephone call between Anwar and his New Zealand counterpart, Christopher Luxon. Both leaders discussed the volatile developments in the Middle East and their direct impact on global energy markets. Currently, New Zealand faces surging fuel prices and domestic economic pressures as a direct result of the conflict. Anwar and Luxon vowed to bolster bilateral ties under their existing strategic partnership framework. The two nations plan to deepen cooperation in trade, investment and energy security to navigate ongoing global challenges. Malaysia and New Zealand maintains close coordination to protect mutual interests amid growing geopolitical turmoil.
Malaysia has ample water resources and is not at risk of water bankruptcy, contrary to global concerns. Instead, Deputy Prime Minister Dato' Amar Fadilah Yusof says the real challenge is integrated water management, protecting river basins and improving water delivery efficiency. He notes that Malaysia receives over 2,500 millimeter of rainfall annually, with renewable water exceeding 580 billion cubic meters, showing no physical shortage.
Commenting on media reports on global water bankruptcy on Monday, he clarifies the term refers not only to water shortages, but also to declining water quality from pollution. Key issues, he says, include multi-source water storage management, encroachment on catchment areas, river pollution, and lack of integration of alternative water sources like groundwater, riverine reservoirs, recycled water, rainwater harvesting, and desalination. Active dam storage, he adds, currently supports up to 90 days of supply. However, national non-revenue water (NRW) remains at 34.3%, equivalent to about 6,000 million litres of treated water lost daily. He adds, national water demand is projected to rise from 19,372 million litres per day in 2025 to over 25,000 million litres per day by 2030. Malaysia has 2,986 river basins, with about 30% of main basins facing moderate to serious pollution from industrial discharge and uncontrolled land use. As Minister of Energy Transition and Water Transformation, he emphasizes accelerating integrated water resource management in all major basins and strengthening storage strategies through dam capacity upgrades and systematic groundwater mapping. He also stresses expanding new financing approaches, including public-private partnerships and performance-based funding to accelerate NRW reduction projects and alternative water development. Public awareness programs are crucial, he adds, as domestic water consumption in Malaysia averaged 225 litres per person per day, above the WHO sustainable target of 165 litres.
Imagine having to choose between the roof over your head and the life of your child. For most, it is an unthinkable dilemma, but for one single mother in Kuching, it is a harsh reality. As families across Sarawak celebrate Aidilfitri, Ida Rahayu has given up her only source of income as a janitor to become a full-time caregiver for her son, Arif, who is currently battling stage 3 brain cancer. I recently sat down with the family to witness the unbreakable bond between a mother and her son.
Ida Rahayu's world shattered last December. Her 14-year-old son, Arif, a quiet and reserved boy, began suffering from blurred vision and constant vomiting. At the Sarawak General Hospital emergency room, the diagnosis was a mother's worst nightmare: a tumor, internal bleeding, and excessive fluid in Arif's brain.
Mun satu saat lagi Puan Let bawanya ke hospital, nya pun pembuluh darah pecah. Katanya Madah cemai dengan kami. Jadi kami ingat benda ya cak teh. Okey, kita nangga git sitok dekat skrin sitok katanya Madah. Nya ada lebihan cecair di otak, ada pendarahan, lepas tu ada ketumbuhan. 3 dalam 1. Kami masa si tahu macam ni nak fikir.
After 3 major surgeries, Arif is now in his 4th round of chemotherapy. Despite the agony of the treatment, Arif says the pain is eased by his mother's unconditional love. She walked away from her 1,700 ringgit monthly salary, choosing to protect her son over financial security.
Mek dah buat yang terbaik, tolong kami masa sakit tu. Dari dulu lagi nya dah buat yang terbaik untuk jaga medok adik-adik. Waktunya single mother dah. Nya jaga medok adik dengan baik. Saya nya berjual macam ni. Nya berjual barang nya berjual makanan dekat klinik Satok ya. Saya kena alu dak di BKU ambus kenya si boleh jual lagi. Saya nya cari-carilah kerja, berusaha cari kerja. Saya temulah klinik Merpati Jepangnya ada kosong. Saya hanya kerja sialah. Saya kat dengan Mek Saki Datuk alunya sanggup berhenti kerja demi nak jaga kami.
With medical costs exceeding 600 ringgit and no steady income, Aidilfitri celebrations have been replaced by a battle for survival.
Dah yang 6 bulan 1 mesti silap kami just start cycle 1. Sebab benda terlalu rushing, kami jadi seapat kata saya ada masa untuk kami berfikir. Betul si anak aku tu kena kanser, betul kan dia kena tu. Betul kan dia kena macam seolah-olah benda terlalu cepat. Jadi ya kami mandah apa nak fikir kami mudah beri kami ialah orang saya ada di tempat kami. Ya jak memang. Tapi terima kasihlah banyak-banyak atas sokongan keluarga, adik-adik, kawan-kawan sekeliling lah, mana-mana cikgunya pas mampu sokongan kami. Lepasnya Madah, sampai Dr. Betty cakap dengan kami, kamu punya anak kena brain cancer, stage 3, final germinal gemimoma yang jarang ditemui. Dalam 10 orang mungkin seorang dua aja yang kena. Katanya Madah macam ya.
Meanwhile, Arif, a die-hard Muay Thai fan, recently had his dream come true when one championship star, Johan Jojo Ghazali, paid him a surprise visit, giving him the hope he needs to keep fighting. For those who wish to donate, contributions can be made directly to the account shown on screen.
Those were the updates on TVS Nightline. I'm Lorenzo Isaac. Thank you for watching and have a good night.